I want you to picture a scenario that I think we have all been in at some point.
Oh, I'm sure we have.
You are in a meeting. It is like 4 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
The project is completely behind schedule, the budget is blown, and there are half a dozen people in the room just arguing about whose fault it is.
Right, the classic blame game.
Exactly. The air's just thick with panic and noise. It is basically just static.
That sounds like a standard Tuesday for a lot of corporate teams, honestly. A total nightmare, but standard.
Yeah, but then imagine the door opens. Someone walks in. And they don't yell, they don't, join the panic. They just stand there, listen for about 30 seconds, and then say 3 sentences that completely cut through all that fog.
Just instant clarity.
Yes. Suddenly, the chaos isn't chaos anymore. It is just a list of problems to be solved.
You are describing a very specific, very powerful type of energy shift in a room.
I really am. And if you're listening to this right now and thinking, hey, that sounds like me, or maybe, man, I really wish I had that person on my team, then you need to stick around.
Because today we are looking at something fascinating.
We are. Today we are doing a deep dive into a very specific personalized profile from the Max Energy ME80 personality system. It's called the FAWN Signal Messenger Report.
It is a striking name, isn't it? The Signal Messenger.
It sounds kind of like a superhero, frankly, or maybe something out of a sci-fi movie.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into the superhero stuff, let's ground this a bit.
Good idea.
We have looked at personality tests before in this show. We've seen the usual suspects. But what makes this Max Energy ME80 system different? Like, why are we using this specific source today?
Well, the Max Energy system is really interesting because it doesn't just look at surface level behavior. It looks at the energy engine underneath the hood, so to speak.
Okay, so not just asking if you like parties or whatever.
Right, exactly. It's not asking, are you outgoing? It is asking, how does your brain process values, filter emotions, and calculate decisions before you even open your mouth?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's much more like an operating manual for your internal wiring.
An operating manual. I really like that framing. Our mission today is basically to unpack this manual for the listener. We have 13 key aspects to get through, from their core identity all the way to their career superpowers.
It is a lot to cover, but it is incredibly revealing.
So let's just open the manual for the Signal Messenger. I'm looking at the first section here, identity and control. The report defines their core identity as, quote, reorganizing chaos into clear signals, restoring direction where noise once consumed clarity.
That is a very bold claim.
It is. It's a massive claim.
It is, but it is entirely accurate for this personality type. I mean, this isn't a personality that thrives on ambiguity. Their entire existence is about restoring direction where noise has taken over.
So they are essentially an anti-chaos agent.
Yes, the report defines them as an externally focused early warning communicator.
Externally focused meaning?
They don't just sit in their office and philosophize about order. They actively go out into the world to create it.
They bring energy to the interaction.
They do. But here's the nuance. It is not about being bossy. It is about vigilance.
Vigilance. So kind of like a security guard.
Or maybe more like a highly sophisticated radar system. Look at what the report says about their global vision and control philosophy.
Right, I see that. It says for the Signal Messenger, clarity itself is a form of protection.
Yes. Unpack that for a second. If you are on a ship in the fog, what is the absolute biggest danger to you?
Probably hitting an iceberg. Or another ship, I guess.
Exactly. The unknown. For this personality type, the fog, meaning vague instructions, hidden agendas, sloppy data, that fog is an active threat.
They believe that if we can't see it clearly, it can hurt us.
Right. So their control mechanism is to act as that early warning system. They would much rather point out a risk right now while there is still time to turn the ship rather than patch a hole in the hull later.
Okay, that makes so much sense. That explains why they can sometimes come across as a bit intense.
Very intense, sometimes.
But it's not that they are trying to be negative or ruin the mood. They're genuinely trying to keep everyone safe.
Precisely. They bring this really high energy to everyday interactions, but the absolute second things get critical, they just snap into this cool, logic-driven mode.
They drop the warmth.
They trade warmth for accuracy, because in their mind, accuracy is what saves lives or, saves the quarterly project.
That is such a fascinating psychological reframe.
Yeah.
But I want to get into the actual mechanics of how they do this. The report breaks this down into an energy matrix.
Yes, the 4 layers.
And honestly, looking at this chart in the source material, it looks a bit like a circuit board. We have IP, IQ, EQ, and manifestation layers.
It does look highly technical on paper, but it is actually a beautiful, continuous flow of energy. Think of it as a four-step process that happens in mere milliseconds inside their brain.
Okay, let's walk the listener through the circuit. Step 1 is the IP layer, which stands for the inner value layer.
This is the ignition switch. For the FAWN signal messenger, the IP layer is defined by the phrase, energy drives initiation.
Energy drives initiation, so they do not need a push start from a boss or a deadline.
Never. They are ultimate self-starters. This layer determines why they move in the first place.
Right, because some people move because they want to be liked or they want a reward.
Exactly. But the signal messenger moves because their internal energy just naturally sparks the moment they see a situation that requires attention. It is a highly proactive value system.
Got it. So the engine is turned on. Now, usually when I hear the term IQ, I think of a standardized test score. But here in the ME80 system, we have the IQ layer, which is called the emotional activation layer.
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting. In this system, the IQ layer acts as the filter, or maybe the steering wheel.
And for this profile, it's governed by structure and principled judgment.
Which sounds incredibly disciplined.
It sounds rigid, honestly.
It is rigid, but this is where a lot of people misunderstand this personality. People see their high initiation energy and assume it is just raw, unchecked emotion.
But it isn't.
Not at all. That initial spark from the IP layer gets immediately funneled through a strict set of rules, logic, and internal frameworks.
So they don't just blindly react to things.
No. They might feel a strong reaction initially, but before it goes anywhere, their brain automatically asks, is this logical? Does this fit the rules? Is this based on solid principles?
It is almost like a constitutional review of their own sudden impulses.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
Okay, so we have the spark at the IP layer, then the rule book at the IQ layer. Now we hit the EQ layer, the decision calculation layer. And this is actually where I get a bit confused.
How so?
Well, if they are so logical and rule-bound, wouldn't their EQ layer just be shut down entirely?
You would think so, but actually this is their secret weapon. The report describes this EQ layer as focusing on emotional perception and resonance.
Wait, so they are emotional?
They are emotionally aware. It operates like a sensor. Even though they are driving the car using logic and rules, their internal radar is picking up every single emotional signal in the room.
Really? So they notice the subtle stuff.
Absolutely. They know you are stressed. They know the client is frustrated. They know the intern is totally lost.
So they are definitely not robots.
Far from it. They actually use that emotional data to calculate exactly how to land their message.
Oh, I see.
They might think, okay, the logic says we have to cut this budget by 20%, but my EQ sensor tells me the team is already deeply demoralized. So I need to present this logical fact in a way that stabilizes the team rather than crushing them.
That is an incredibly powerful combination.
Yeah.
They are literally using empathy as a data point for their logic.
It is exactly what makes them highly effective leaders rather than just annoying, pedantic critics.
And that brings us to the final part of the matrix, the manifestation layer.
The output.
Right. The report says energy released outward. So the signal messenger does not keep all this complex processing inside.
Not a chance. If they have initiated the spark, filtered it through their structural rules, and calculated the emotional cost, they will speak. They manifest clarity visibly.
So there's no holding back, no poker face.
Not really. If they see a clear signal, they have to transmit it. They are practically incapable of sitting on critical information. Their energy is forcefully projected outward to impact their environment.
It creates a really vivid picture.
Yeah.
You have this person who is basically a walking processing plant for chaos.
Yes.
They take in all this messy noise, run it through this high-speed 4-layer matrix, and spit out clear, executable instructions.
That is a great summary of the energy matrix.
But I want to dig a bit deeper into what the report calls their inner traits, specifically this core trait of signal integration.
This is critical to understanding them. The essence of this trait is see clearly first, then speak.
Which is pretty rare these days. In a world of instant hot takes and Twitter reactions, the signal messenger is highly disciplined.
They really are. They insist on integrating the signals first. They are the person in that chaotic meeting we talked about earlier who might sit completely quiet for 10 straight minutes while everyone else is just throwing out terrible ideas.
They are quietly gathering all the loose threads.
Exactly, grabbing the key threads from amidst the mess. And when they do finally speak, They offer what the report specifically calls executable judgments.
Executable judgments. I really love that phrase. It's not just someone whining, hey, I think we have a problem here.
Right. It is, here is the problem, here is the verified evidence, and here is the step-by-step fix.
And the report notes this comes from a place of deep values. They value process, rules, and professional boundaries way more than they value surface harmony.
Oh, let's pause right there. Surface harmony.
Yeah, that polite nodding we all do in meetings when we know an idea is bad, but we really don't want to rock the boat.
The signal messenger absolutely despises polite nodding. If the boat is taking on water, they do not care if you are in the middle of a nice, polite conversation. They are going to loudly point out the hole.
Which, I have to be honest, sounds like a trait that could get them into a lot of trouble socially.
It absolutely does.
Right.
And this leads us directly into section 4 of the report, the shadow and blind spots, because every superpower has a cost. For the signal messenger, the report identifies their primary blind spot as excessive verification.
Excessive verification. Is that basically corporate code for micromanaging?
It can certainly feel like that to the people around them. The report notes, over-frequent reminders slow the rhythm.
Because they are so anxious about the risks.
Yes, remember, clarity is protection for them, so they might check in way too often. Did you send that email? Is the data correct? Let me see the spreadsheet one more time.
I can definitely see how that lands with a team. You are just trying to get your work done, and you have this person constantly hovering over you, looking for faults.
And that is exactly the perception. They risk being labeled as fault-finding.
That has to be frustrating for them.
It is deeply painful for them, actually, because they don't see themselves as critics. They see themselves as protectors. But to the rest of the team, it feels like they're just walking around popping everyone's balloons.
And what impact does that have on the team dynamic overall?
The report warns that over time, people might start to withhold authenticity.
Meaning they just stop telling the truth.
Or they stop sharing those messy, creative, half-formed ideas. They become afraid that the signal messenger will instantly dissect their fragile idea with cold logic.
Right, because innovation requires a bit of psychological safety to be wrong for a minute.
Exactly. And the signal messenger, in their rush for clarity, doesn't always provide that safety.
That is a very real danger for leaders with this profile. But I'm also curious about the internal cost to the person themselves. It cannot be easy to be the one who is always scanning the horizon for the iceberg.
It is exhausting. The expert analysis notes they live in a state of continuous tension.
Continuous tension.
Yes. They carry a massive burden of responsibility. If a project fails, even if it objectively wasn't their job to manage it, they feel it deeply.
They blame themselves.
They do. They think, I should have seen that signal. I should have warned them louder. The report says they habitually shoulder the blame first when errors occur.
That is so heavy. It really is a lonely position to be the designated adult in the room at all times.
Yeah. It is. And naturally, this tension bleeds over into their social relationships as well.
Let's talk about that next.
Yeah.
Section 5 covers social and relationships. The report defines their interaction style as having clear boundaries. So how does this air traffic controller vibe play out at, say, a dinner party?
Well, initially, it works out great. They're usually highly communicative, expressive, and logical. They tell excellent stories because they know how to organize information perfectly.
So they aren't just sitting grumpily in the corner at a party.
Not at all. Social interaction feels quite easy and natural for them at first. They are often the ones explaining complex, interesting topics to the group.
But I hear a but coming.
But there is a shift. The report explicitly warns about the rapid shift that happens the moment a decision needs to be made.
What does that look like?
Picture this. You are out with friends, laughing, having a drink, everything is loose and fun. Then someone asks, okay, how are we getting to the concert? And what time do we actually need to leave?
And the signal messenger just activates.
Instantly, the casual banter stops, and they switch into this evidence-based, point-focused mode. Well, if we leave now, traffic is exactly 12 minutes, but Sarah always takes 10 minutes to get her coat, so we need a buffer.
Oh man, I definitely know this person. Fun time is officially over. We now have a logistics crisis.
Exactly, and the dynamic is tricky. While some friends love that clarity because it brings reassurance and they feel taken care of, it carries a lot of pressure for others.
Right.
The report states they are tolerant of no vagueness. If you are a wishy-washy friend who replies with maybe a lot, you are going to drive them completely crazy.
They will try to pin you down. Do you want pizza or not? Yes or no?
And what time? And from which specific restaurant?
It's that relentless drive for clarity again.
Yeah.
It is how they show care by organizing your chaos. but it doesn't always feel warm and fuzzy to the
Yeah,
recipient.
it feels like an interrogation sometimes.
So, given all this, let's pivot to Section 6, business value and careers. Because clearly, you do not want to place this person in a role where vibes are considered more important than hard facts.
Definitely not. You want them where the stakes are real and tangible. The report highlights their highest ROI is in quality control and risk assessment.
Identifying hazards before they hit.
Exactly. They are natural auditors. If you have a major product launch coming up, you want a signal messenger to tear through the plan 3 days before launch to find the critical flaws everyone else missed.
They are the ultimate stress testers.
Yes. The report also highlights meeting review and decision support. If you have a leadership team that loves to endlessly debate but never actually lands on a choice, put a signal messenger in the room.
They will force a conclusion.
They will provide the undeniable rational basis for a choice. They also excel at cross-department communication, explaining highly complex issues to external parties without losing the core facts.
And what specific career fields does the ME80 report recommend for them?
It points heavily toward high-standard organizations, places where clear expression and rigid standards are deeply valued. Think about roles that literally require reorganizing chaos. Crisis management, high-level auditing, strategic planning, places where fog is deadly.
Reorganizing chaos. I keep coming back to that exact phrase. It is such an incredibly valuable skill set in the modern economy. We are absolutely drowning in data and noise everywhere we look.
We really are. We have never had more access to information, yet we have less actual clarity than ever before. The signal messenger is practically built for this exact era.
So if I am a manager listening to this deep dive right now, and I realize I have a signal messenger on my team, the worst thing I could do is tell them to just lighten up.
That would be a massive mistake. You should give them a highly complex problem to solve instead.
You should thank them for their professional doubt.
That is the absolute key. If you shut down their warnings, you completely lose their superpower. But if you respect their questions, they become the most reliable engine on your team.
That actually leads us perfectly to the closing thought of today's deep dive. The ME80 report has this one golden sentence at the end that just beautifully sums all of this up.
It really is a profound summary. Let me read it.
Go ahead.
It says, when questions are respected and professional doubt is fielded well, the signal messenger's clarity transforms into steady, forward-moving power. In the noise, what they persistently do is preserve the signals that truly matter.
Preserve the signals that truly matter. That completely changes the perspective for me. They aren't nitpicking just to be annoying. They are actively preserving the truth.
Exactly. And in a perpetually noisy world, that is a remarkably noble mission.
Well, this has been an incredibly revealing look into the mind and the mechanics of the signal messenger. If you have been listening and realizing that you, or maybe your spouse or your boss, fits this description, I really hope this deep dive gives you a new operating manual for how to handle that energy.
It is always about understanding the engine under the hood. Once you see the structure, the behavior makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. Now, we touched on a lot of highly specific terms today. The energy matrix, IP, IQ, EQ manifestation, and all of this analysis comes directly from the Max Energy ME80 Personality Assessment Report. It is a very deep, robust system, and honestly, we only scratched the surface today.
We really did. If you want to truly understand your own specific energy matrix, you need to see your full report. You can visit their official website for more information at www.maxenergylife.com.
And for our listeners who want to connect and learn more on social media, what should they search for?
You can search on Facebook for Max Energy Polyenergy Personality Studies, or you can search for Med Energy Energy Personality Psychology.
Perfect. We will make sure to put those exact search terms and the website link right in the show notes so you don't have to try to memorize all of that while you're driving or working out.
Good idea. After all, clarity is protection.
See, you are applying the lessons already. But seriously, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to mull over. As our society gets faster and the sheer volume of daily communication increases, the ability to simply notice what is actually real is becoming a rare commodity.
Very true.
So, to all the signal messengers out there tuning in, thank you for constantly watching the radar. Thank you for asking the awkward, heavy questions in the meetings. And thank you for getting the rest of us home safe through the fog. Your vigilance is not a burden. It is the foundation of our progress.
Keep cutting through the noise.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.